being the reason my younger siblings said no to being adopted by our stepmom? I'm 16M, the oldest of 4. My siblings are Kalia, 13F, Thea, 11F, and Dex, 10M. Our mom died 8 years ago. Kalia and I are the only ones who remember her, and I remember her more than Cal does. But we have always shared stories of our mom with Thea and Dex. I also have a bunch of photos and videos they've seen, and they do ask about her, including to our dad sometimes. 2 years after mom died, my dad met my stepmom and married her pretty quickly, 7-ish months later. At the time they spoke about her adopting the 4 of us. I said no. There was some debate between them and they decided to hold off until she could adopt all 4 of us. She was still new to me, so I found it incredibly weird to have someone offer to adopt me 5 months after I met them, and especially when she and my dad were both aware that I remembered mom. None of my siblings have ever called our stepmom mom. Thea and Dex call her by a nickname and Kalia calls her by her name like me. But my siblings consider her a parent while I consider her more my dad's wife. The adoption topic never really went away, and a couple of years ago I did some research and learned that adoption would alter my birth certificate and I would be issued with a new one if I agreed. My stepmom's name would replace my mom's name as my mother. I did a lot of research on the topic because I knew the issue would reach a boiling point eventually. I even got to web chat with a local lawyer who knew the details of that stuff. A couple of months ago my siblings asked me why I mentioned downsides to being adopted, and I told them stepmom's name would replace mom's on our birth certificates and I did not want her to replace mom on mine. I showed them what I found. Kalia understood and Thea and Dex got it when we put it into more kid-friendly terms. My dad and stepmom brought up the adoption again last week and dad said it would be the last time or they would proceed with her adopting my siblings. I said my answer remained no and gave them a very detailed speech on why. My stepmom said I could always frame my original birth certificate if that would make it better and people would see it, but I would still be adopted and be her son. I said no. When they did go to my siblings they all said no and all said they didn't realize mom's name would be erased and they didn't want that. My dad and stepmom tried to coax them out of their no, but they all said they didn't want it, and Kalia said they only ever said yes because they felt like they should, not because they really wanted to be adopted. My dad was furious with me and said it was all my fault and I had made them change their minds. He said I robbed them of the security adoption would provide and effectively made sure they would never truly see our stepmom as mom after such a big line in the sand was drawn. Comment 1. I'm sorry to read about the loss of your mom. My heart goes out to all of you. I mean this question gently, but what's the plan for 4 minors if dad passes? I understand where you're coming from, and of course you want to keep every memory you have of your mom. I didn't read anything that indicates your stepmom is evil or manipulative. In fact, it's fairly generous that she's trying to provide that level of security for the 4 of you. Your feelings are valid. I didn't know about the birth certificate changing, that would give me pause too, but I'm just thinking that worst case scenario if dad also passes, is there a clear guardianship established that will keep your family together and home? Op comment. We have extended family who would gladly take us if dad died. My siblings might want to stay with our stepmom. That would make sense to me if they did. But I wouldn't exactly want to. Especially back then I considered staying with her the same as going into foster care since she was so new and a near stranger. But even today, she would not be one of my top choices to stay with if dad were gone. Story 2. Telling my sister she should have listened to and believed her stepson and she wouldn't be so blindsided today. My sister Jess, 36F, has been married to Kyle, 38M, for 7 years. Jess has Parker, 11M, from a previous relationship, and Kyle has Body, 15M, from his first marriage. Body's mom died when he was 5 or 6. Ever since Jess and Kyle got married, Body has been pretty clear about not seeing Jess and Parker as his mom/bonus mom or brother. Parker adores Body, though. Early in the relationship and again in the marriage, my other sister Chantel and I brought up to Jess that she should really listen to Body. Jess got this idea into her head that the boys were bonding and Body adored Parker as much as Parker adored him. Body always said he was an only child and Parker would never be just his brother/his real brother. Jess didn't listen to us and she lived in this fantasy world. Last year Parker was diagnosed with cancer. Broke all our hearts because he was so scared and treatment has been awful for him, but he is coming out on the other side. Body's feelings and relationship did not change when Parker got cancer. He's still distant and not very emotionally attached to Parker. My sister kinda noticed then but said that she still believed Body would be there for Parker if he needed him. A few weeks ago Body won tickets to an amusement park Parker loves. He hasn't been able to go for a while because he was sick and Jess and Kyle are financially struggling due to Parker's cancer and things they had to pay for in that time. So money is tight. Body said he invited his best friend to go with him. Kyle suggested that he should take Parker and he said no. He said he wanted to go with his friend, not with Parker. Parker had already been told about the tickets and he really wanted to go with Body. He adores Body and thinks he is the coolest and best person in the world. He was crushed when he heard. Jess and Kyle sat down and talked to Body about how much it would mean to Parker and how it would be a kind thing to give him something fun to do and the two could enjoy it together. Body said no and he mentioned that he left the tickets with his friend and his friend's parents so Jess and Kyle couldn't use them how they wanted. Jess is pissed. She's angry that Body is being this way and has been blindsided by how little Body cares about Parker's happiness and the fact he wouldn't jump at the chance for them to have a fun day together when they could have lost Parker. Chantel and her already fought over it and Chantel told Jess she had no business hating the kid and he didn't choose this. When she came to me and asked why Chantel was so pissed at her and why neither of us seemed to be shocked, I said it's because we believed him when he said Parker wasn't his brother and I said she should have really listened and believed him too. Jess cried and yelled at me and told me Body was a kid and still is one and kids can say things they don't mean all the time. She said we expected way too much of her. Comment 1. NTA and damn. The fact that Body left the tickets at a safe place, which is not his home, speaks volumes. The audacity of parents often shocks me when it comes to forced blended family relations. Especially if it's not about young kids but a 15-year-old. Body can almost vote, drink, drive, marry and join the military but his stepmom thinks he is a dumb child who says things he does not mean. Your sister's attitude leaves me dumbfounded. They told Parker to guilt trip Body. Comment 2. NTA, but man, I feel bad for Parker. He should have never been told about the tickets. I do wonder if perhaps Body would be agreeable to going with him another time under different circumstances, though. Perhaps everyone could pool their money and gift the kids and their parents, or another guardian, a visit together for Christmas, if the park is open then? Or perhaps the parents could afford for one of them to take only him? I'm sure he would prefer going together, but going alone would probably still be fun enough. Comment 3. A 15-year-old taking an 11-year-old he doesn't care about, and has/had cancer, to an amusement park on their own is a recipe for disaster. Your sister isn't being realistic about anything. The fact that the kid knew to leave the tickets with his friends so they couldn't steal them is telling. Your sister needs to face reality. NTA. Body has probably already basically lost his dad and financial security to your sister and nephew. This isn't going to be fixed. Story 3. Commenting on my stepmom's weight and telling her I'm just pointing out what I see. I, F17, used to have cancer, and I have been in remission for 2 years. It was a really hard time in my life but I got through it. When I was 13 I was on this medication for my cancer and it caused my belly to be really bloated. I looked about 6 months pregnant, and I was also constantly in pain with belly issues. It was a really hard point both physically and mentally through my fight with cancer. Once when I was in the hospital my dad and his then fiancé came to visit me. It was when I was on that medication and looked 6 months pregnant. I was wearing a t-shirt that was slightly small on me because of all my bloating so my belly was on full display. When my dad's fiancé said why she looked so pregnant, My mom was there and luckily stuck up for me and ended up kicking her and my dad out. Her reasoning for saying that is she just points out what she sees. This past Saturday I was a bridesmaid at my cousin's wedding. It was a beautiful and fun wedding. I noticed my dad and his now wife there. I haven't seen them since his wife said that, so it's been about 4 years. I knew they would be at the wedding and I didn't mind. Well, my stepmom has gained some noticeable weight, I would say about 100 ibs. I usually would never comment on a person's weight gain. But I decided to be a little petty because I never forgot what she said to me when I was 13 and dealing with cancer. So I went up to them and started making some small talk. Then I looked at my dad's wife and said, "Wow, you've gained some weight." Both my dad and his wife looked shocked. I just shrugged and said, "What? I am just pointing out what I see." I could tell by his wife's face she knew what I was getting at. I just walked away and the rest of the wedding was fun. The past few days family has been texting me calling me a brat and for commenting on that to my stepmom. I explained to them what happened when I was younger and they still said I was being an because you don't make comments like that. Comment 1. I will say technically ESH, but I lean more towards you being a justified It sounds like you don't really care about maintaining a relationship with them, so I would just leave it be and not feel too bad about it. She is an adult and should have known that the comment she made was wildly inappropriate. She didn't apologize, and considering a rude comment 4 years later was the only consequence she received, I'd say she got off light. However, I will warn you that you may want to avoid having the tit-for-tat mentality in the future. It's a good way to burn bridges and is pretty much never worth the drama. I think you're seeing a bit of that with having the other family members being upset with you. Hopefully they will realize sooner rather than later that defending a nasty person willing to criticize a child with cancer isn't worth it. Comment 2. I'm going against the grain here. YTA. She hurt you. So you hurt her back? What's next? Is she going to ramp this up and hurt you more? Then you'll get her back? Being as asshole is never justified. If we all just ramped up our hurts and pains with every transaction, we'd be at war. So, you did this, you feel better, but don't gloat. Don't plan the next attack. Be better than the pain around you. P's very sorry you had cancer, that must have been so scary. Comment 3. NTA. I admire the pettiness. Literally send to the people blaming you for this. Stepmom had no right to say that to a cancer-laden child. Quite frankly, I don't care what you all think. Story 4. Leaving my son's share of my estate to his daughter? My other kids don't think I am being fair. My spineless son Richard, 38M, has prioritized his wife and stepkids over his own daughter Haley, 18F. It's happened multiple times. I have decided to disinherit him and rescind his stepkids' 529 college funds. I am not here for judgment if I should disinherit him or rescinding the college funds, but if it's fair to my other 2 kids by leaving my granddaughter an equal share of my estate. The way my will is currently written, my estate will be split equally 3 ways. I have set up 529 funds for all my grandchildren, which I am the sole owner of, and that is all I planned for them to receive with the exception of family heirlooms. I'm seeing my lawyer Friday to make the change. My other 2 kids, 41M and 36F, says it's not fair to their kids. Everyone agrees that Richard, his wife and stepkids are disowned and out of the family. Richard is extremely upset, but you reap what you sow. He is certainly not going to leave anything to Haley now. My other 2 kids have substantial assets themselves and will be leaving their assets to their children. I don't understand, with this being the case, why Haley should not get her father's portion. They think I should leave his share to all the grandkids equally. I am not so convinced. Comment 1. NTA. But it's strange how all your kids turned out this way. I perceive your other 2 children as being very greedy and heartless in this instance. Their niece is already facing life without a real father. Why are they so intent on grubbing every penny they can from your casket for themselves and their kids? Frankly, I give major side-eye to people who feel so entitled to make such selfish and unreasonable demands of a will. Please ensure that will is airtight so that your greedy children can't screw over your niece, and make sure you tell her while you're still alive that it would absolutely fly in the face of your final wishes if she were to capitulate to any emotional manipulation they may try to pull when you're gone. Comment 2. NTA. I was a young widow and my late husband would have rolled over in his grave if I did what your son did. My response to your other 2 kids, the will get split 3 ways, 1/3 to each child except Richard. Richard's daughter Haley gets the 1/3. Don't like it? You want to be cut out next, or do you want me to skip you and leave your 1/3 directly to your kids? Comment 3. NTA, even if you didn't share equally, vish you are doing, why in the world would they receive a part of Richard's part? Is 1/3 not enough for them? You can give them whatever part you want, you don't owe them an explanation. Although what you said makes total sense and I say go for it. Is there a possibility to not inform them of how much the others get? Like only know what they are getting, when the time is there. Can't believe how greedy people get. If you would like to spend everything, it is your right, that would even make things easier. Maybe suggest that, next time they feel shortchanged. Good luck.